Located deep in a remote area of the mountains, an elite task force is quietly marching. They carry on their shoulders the extremely important task of arrest. Two snipers, wearing a grass suit, hiding on a nearby mountain, observing every move of the enemy base through the scope. Soon after, with good coordination, they easily took down all the guards outside the base without spending any energy. The other members also quietly infiltrated the base through a secret tunnel. After entering, they quickly split into groups and raided the target areas that were pulled out. Who is the pursuer this time that makes the whole team spend so much effort? And in this dangerous mission, will they be able to complete their goal smoothly? The story has to go back to 2 days ago. Agent Shin Ae receives instructions from his superiors, asking him to secretly go to Port Terry K to assist Lieutenant Colonel Mary in arresting two notorious subjects: weapons dealer and engineer who designs dirty weapons. After 36 hours of arduous journey, Bess finally arrived at Osprey K. Not having time to rest, he immediately joined forces with his model and Team 5. After a few brief greetings, they immediately get to work. Through the detailed introduction of the model and the team members, they grasp basic information about the two goals this time. Eric is an arms dealer who's been operating illegally for a long time, causing a lot of instability in this area. Meanwhile, Matthew is an engineer who specializes in designing high lethal weapons, providing dangerous weapons to Rick. These two people are a serious threat to the stability and peace of society. Therefore, they must be quickly arrested and brought to justice. Soon after, Moyer did not hide, but revealed that they had used a satellite system to pinpoint Rick's hiding location. However, his movements never stayed in one place for too long. The team decided to launch an attack within the next 48 hours. This short preparation time is really too urgent for the baby. As an experienced sniper, he cannot accept going to the battlefield without careful preparation. But at this time, Nova, a team member, reassured him. Nova explained that they have completed the terrain survey and battlefield analysis through drones. His job is just to focus on showing his sniper ability well. After that, the team returned to the barracks, but as soon as he got out of the car, Ben suddenly saw a familiar figure that was his former teammate Johnson after a long time apart. The two could not hold back and hugged each other tightly. At this point, the kitchen learned that it was Johnson who had recommended him to the model for him to be transferred from the 6th Marine Corps in Jose's eyes. This mission is full of dangers and unpredictable variables. The task force needs a sniper with excellent skills and extensive experience to protect the raiding force, and for him, it is the perfect choice. As soon as they retracted their words, they walked into a room. There were several special forces with a strong temperament sitting here. Ross explained that this task force consists of a total of 10 people, all of whom are elites from all over the world, and she is the final piece of the puzzle that makes the squad complete. After the self-introduction, the kitchen suddenly realized that the other members had all heard his name before. They are curious about the number of targets he has destroyed so far. But at this moment, Marie suddenly walked into the office, followed by a young soldier. Interrupting the conversation is somewhat insensitive to everyone. The young soldier's name was Johnny, a sniper in the South African Defense Force. His training achievements are excellent, but due to the limited number of actual combat missions. So up to this point, Johnny is still just a real new soldier. When he learned that Johnny would be his assistant in this mission, the party immediately showed dissatisfaction. In the current urgent situation, he didn't have enough time to both fight and be an instructor. Nevertheless, Marie just said coldly that this was an order. There was no other way. She had to accept to carry this debt. After all the members were fully assembled, the team immediately began intense training sessions to find the most effective raid plan. During this time, Nova and others analyzed satellite imagery and discovered that it was most likely that Rick's base was hiding heavy weapons. Soon after, Mary also quickly finalized the battle plan. Ready for the upcoming battle, snipers will play a support role from a high position, while the rest of the members will infiltrate the enemy base through a secret tunnel system. Then, the team will be divided into 5 groups. Each team goes to the assigned target area. Make sure that none of the RX in the base can escape. When the task is completed, all will retreat in the tunnel back to the ground. Then quickly move to the 4-person pier. There, they will board a fishing boat to go out into international waters. Although the plan sounds perfect, Marie and Andy still insist that this mission must be absolutely confidential. The reason is because Rick is receiving protection from Prime Minister Zia. He possessed a powerful militia that specialized in carrying out dirty missions. And if the plan was exposed before the action, they would have to face at least 100 armed militiamen. Turn this mission into an unbalanced battle after completing the tactical deployment. Johnny enters a period of intense training under the guidance of Bex as a shooter who has never taken down a passer. Looney's heart was full of feelings of both nervousness and excitement. However, she just looked at him with contemplative eyes and then spoke seriously. As a sniper, he must always keep a sober head and must not hesitate for even a second. Remember, the battlefield is always changing from moment to moment, and even a little hesitation can cost his teammates their lives. These words were immediately engraved in the junior's mind. During this time, he ate and slept with his teammates. As he trained, he gradually began to form a strong bond with them. These are elite special forces from many different countries, and each of them is a seasoned warrior who has fought countless life and death battles. Because they want to protect the stability of this area, they volunteered to join this special task force. After his last training session, before leaving, Johnny sat down and talked to him about his past. It turned out that his father had been murdered by DR. But what is even more infuriating is that his biological uncle betrayed his family for personal gain and colluded with the person who killed his brother. For this reason, Ginny must participate in this mission. When night falls, knows how to quietly lead Johnny out of the base without making any noise. They moved to a secret location, which was about 200 meters away. There was a lighted building handed to Rooney, a sniper rifle, and pointed at a man standing in front of the building's door. That was his goal, although he was still hesitant in his heart. Yaniv finally chose to obey the order. He quickly set up 4 positions, aligned the line of sight accurately, and then after a moment's hesitation, tightened the trigger. But the unexpected happened, that no bullet was fired from the barrel. On the way back to base, Rooney was still in a state of tension and confusion. At this time, the new kitchen calmly explained that this was just a psychological test, and that Johnny passed it. Seeing the baby's satisfied smile, Johnny finally breathed a sigh of relief. Soon after, he mustered up all the courage to say what he had been hiding in his heart for a long time. He wants to take on the role of commander, leading the team to complete the upcoming task. Because, even before Bex joined, the team members had heard his name for a long time. Each member of the team gave him deep respect and admiration. If he agrees, the team leader, the chances of success of the mission will increase significantly. But contrary to Johnny's waiting, the kitchen flatly refused this offer without any hesitation. At this moment, Johnson suddenly appeared, interrupting their conversation. He announced that the mission would officially begin in the next few hours. Immediately, the whole team urgently entered the preparation stage before the battle. People quickly checked and packed the weapons. Then, they take advantage of the night to secretly board a white truck, embark on a journey to Rick's hideout. Not knowing how long had passed, they finally reached their goal according to the plan. Each member found a suitable combat position. Best and Yoni secretly ambushed on a high mountain, carefully observing the situation of guarding outside the base on the other side. The raid groups also progressed smoothly. Not long after, the captain must have reported that there was no sign of the enemy hiding in the garage area. Maury's voice echoed over the radio announcing that Team B was entering the office area in search of the 2 main targets shortly afterwards. Marie and 2 other members quietly took down a lone guard. The gunfire caught the attention of the other guy and ran away. The most surprising thing is that they almost did not lose a little. What effort found Rick? However, Rick reacts extremely quickly. He immediately grabbed the shot pool gun in the room and frantically fired at the door. Marie was shot in the leg before she could dodge. The raiding team was forced to withdraw temporarily entrenched, but that opportunity. Vic quickly used the radio speaker system in the base to alarm. He ordered all the guards to concentrate their fire to destroy the invading group immediately. Hearing this, Moyer immediately realized that the situation was gradually deteriorating. He uses the radio to communicate with Bed, and Johnny reminds them to remain on high alert. But before he could finish speaking, a group of guards appeared from behind. The 3 people did not hesitate to immediately counterattack. After dealing with this group of soldiers, Bet and Rooney discovered Vic had taken advantage of the opportunity to escape the other way. At the same time, Angel led Nova to carefully approach the enemy's ammunition depot. But they didn't expect that as soon as they turned the corner of the wall, Lean touched the troops' faces. Fortunately, Angel promptly took down 2 soldiers in the blink of an eye. Then, 2 people quickly entered the ammunition depot. Wait for the next action order. However, less than a minute later, a fierce gunshot sounded above their heads, and the 2 immediately raised their vigilance, pointing their guns at the door of the warehouse in case the enemy suddenly broke in. Outside the kitchen, Johnny persisted in holding his fighting position. After a careful search, they finally discovered the location of the sniper and the enemy's observer. Inside the building, gunshots still rang out. At this time, Eric hid in a panicked warehouse and contacted Prime Minister Zia to ask him to fulfill his pledge and send militias to protect him. However, the other end of the line is just silence death. Realizing that he could not rely on aid, he refused to sit still and wait for death. He decisively activated a strange machine in the room. It turns out that this is the most advanced weapon designed by Matthew. A super weapon that can release deadly energy at this time. Marie and the raid team stormed the warehouse, but just as everyone thought the mission was about to be completed, Matthew coldly pressed the button to activate the weapon. The next second, a huge shockwave exploded. The group was thrown by the terrifying pressure after the smoke and dust dissipated. The room was almost completely destroyed, and everyone was injured to varying degrees. The explosion even affected both the Angel and the Nova downstairs. Eric was the first person to wake up after the stupor, recognized the opportunity. He hurriedly got up and tried to run away. But at that moment, a cold black gun barrel was close to his forehead. It turns out, Johnson arrived in time and quickly controlled both Eric and Matthew. Exterior, Bet and Rooney also rushed into the base. Seeing his teammates injured, no one was in danger of life. They breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Eric is still extremely unruly. Loudly announced that the armed militia of Prime Minister Zia was on its way. I heard that. Jun Sun just smiled faintly. They didn't care at all because they had calculated the time accurately enough for the team to clean up the scene and retreat safely. Soon after, the Moyer began to assign tasks. They need to collect all weapons and ammunition here, cutting off supplies to him. However, Marie's words did not stop his nosebleeds, and suddenly his whole body staggered, his mind whirled, and then he lost control, falling to the ground unconscious. Everyone was stunned, and they didn't have time to understand what was happening. Other teammates who were present in the explosion also fell down one after another, even the drive. The one who was still screaming frantically also began to tremble. His face was white. A member of the team hurriedly grabbed Matthew, questioning how to prevent this situation. But he didn't have time to open his mouth to answer. Matthew also fell motionless. Within a short minute, everyone who was in the room when the explosion occurred was killed. The task force had lost nearly half of its troops, and only those outside the blast were lucky to survive. The atmosphere became suffocatingly heavy, and suddenly the angel turned as though his eyes red with mad anger and questioned, why was he not the only one in the room when the explosion happened? Rose calmly replied that he was busy chasing an enemy and could not enter the warehouse with the Mary. However, the angel was on the verge of collapse, absolutely not believing this explanation. Rossi understood the feelings of his teammates. He took a deep breath, patiently reassuring, now is not the time to argue. The most important thing is to leave here before the real militia arrives. Nova suddenly asked, what should they do next? Looking at Nova's hopeful and trusting eyes, he knew that he was a little hesitant, but when urged by Nova, he finally spoke up with his opinion. Why did this weapon have such a delayed side effect? If this problem is not addressed, it can create an irreparable danger in the future. Seeing the paint troll is drowning in guilt and grief, he could only encourage him to lift his spirits. After that, the three of them entered the room and began researching new weapons. Through reviewing the documents that Cool leaves behind, they were surprised to discover that this weapon uses microwave frequencies that have the ability to disrupt the brain. Now, the eye that improved the weapon into a handheld weapon and planned to mass produce it to supply the army of its own, worried Nova said that they needed to destroy this weapon immediately. Nevertheless, in other words, before destroying it, they must understand the principle of operation of this weapon. Only then will they know how to deal with it in the future. Therefore, the three agreed to take important documents with them and leave. But the question is, how will they take this data with them? I asked if Nova could upload the data of this weapon to the internet. Nova replied that he could try, but uploading the data would take a long time, and his militia would arrive very quickly. If they don't retreat immediately, most likely it will be the same as everyone else, lying dead here. Nevertheless, she was very determined. He said that if he let this document fall into his ears again, soon the dead will be them. Once they decipher these secrets, they would save more lives. After that, the group began to urgently implement the plan. Since this was a secret mission, they had no outside help and could not call in the Air Force to support the team. The other room at the Costa Rica base is their only hope. Nova will try to contact the base. This is also the last card that Mourinho has left. Hopefully they can arrive in time before his militia catches up. Soon after, the members began repairing and renovating the base with equipment and weapon science. At different locations, they all set up ambushes, occupying high points, forming an area covered by comprehensive firepower, while the children will ambush in the yard, face the invading enemy head-on to protect Nova, who will stay in a laboratory to process and upload data. Others need to protect him at all costs until the data is uploaded. Nevertheless, before the big battle begins, Bess gave Nova a disposable phone. If he hears someone approaching the Nova lab, he will call the first number that has been saved in the contacts. At that time, the explosives in the corridor will explode immediately. After completing all the preparations, everyone quickly took their positions, waiting for the militia to automatically encircle the net shortly afterwards. The sound of car engines echoed outside the base of its own armed militia had arrived. Everyone simultaneously clenched their guns in their hands, preparing to fight to the death with the enemy. The mine buried in front of the door exploded first. The team members seemed to receive a signal to immediately throw smoke bombs from four sides. Soon the base yard was covered with thick smoke. Seeing this, he immediately rushed into the house. Quickly find a hiding place in the watchtower. Nova aimed at a lone militiaman. The baby's tactics get very good results. Enemies fall under their powerful attacks one after another. Nevertheless, the enemy is numerous and fully armed. Under the stormy attack, the team members gradually felt tired. Ammunition is also gradually running out. Nevertheless, thinking of Nova is still in the lab. Everyone still gritted their teeth and persevered. During the retreat, heroines encountered an ambush by a group of militiamen, only to see her swing her axes quickly and decisively deal with the aggressive foes. Although she is a woman, her melee combat power is not inferior to anyone. A militiaman was extremely alarmed when he saw this. Hurriedly picked up a nearby shotgun and tried to kill her, but was given an axe by Hera that flew into the sky on the other side. The enemy's reinforcements rushed into the base, setting up heavy machine guns and frantically firing at the watchtower where Rooney was hiding. His comrades saw this and quickly came to their aid. Meanwhile, the kitchen went up to the top floor and informed his teammates to retreat first. Then, he quickly installed sniper rifles and aimed rocket artillery on enemy combat vehicles. A loud explosion rang out, causing the car carrying the machine gun to dissolve into ashes. The comrades retreated to the second defensive area one after another when the enemy was close, including the two decisions to divide into two directions to disperse. The left Roxanne forces suddenly clashed with the Angel and had to face the 7 lost wives of the world. Both hands without iron rushed into the melee very quickly. Angel, who had fallen into a weak position and was shackled to a sharp railing by the neck as thousands of pounds hung by the hair. She leaned over to accept the injury to break free, then pulled out the knife from her trousers and lunged at the enemy. After only a few short moves, she knocked down her opponent's game, causing her eyes to get 7 cards. Nova didn't panic either. Under the full protection of his teammates, the data transmission process has reached 98%. However, at this time, Nova suddenly heard footsteps in the corridor, so he called a number saved according to the baby's instructions. When the baby is about to go to the laboratory to receive Nova, he was suddenly knocked away by the aftershocks of the explosion. Fortunately, the destructive power was not enough to injure him. Finally, Nova also brings good news announcing that the data upload is complete. After hearing this, the comrades immediately prepared to join the army and retreated. However, at this time the heroine was besieged by the enemy. When I got to the place, it was too late. There was no time to grieve, so he immediately informed everyone to withdraw through the underground tunnel. As soon as he left the building, he immediately lost his ability to move and fell to the ground. When rescuing Hela, he was unfortunately hit by a bullet. Fortunately, June's son appeared in time to support the other side. The teammates were still trying to escape, but suddenly Nova was hit by a bullet and fell. Everyone helped him hide behind obstacles to temporarily avoid bullets. At this point, Nova returned the phone to bed and asked him to call a second number. After that, Nova slowly closed her eyes, not thinking much. The baby followed suit. A loud explosion left the militia with only about a dozen people. Everyone immediately decided to launch a final counterattack to get out of the situation, leaning on each other's backs. Seeing people shoot creates an opportunity for Angel and Rooney to leave. At this critical moment, the Sonic team arrived at the base in time, pushed back the rest of the armed militia. Thanks to that, Best and his team successfully completed the mission. Nova was also given emergency care in time and eventually survived. Miracle is a big action movie opening for 2025. The film attracted a large audience thanks to its sniper scenes, tension and drama, along with a complex international plot. The film not only continues the familiar high-intensity fighting style of the series, but also through the development of the characters and the spirit of cooperation in the team, it has brought the audience